Welcome to Trainz! Hello there, friends. It's Diecast Day at Trainz, and we've got this big and burly Boeing B-17 for you. Let's get started. So as you can tell from the box, this is made by Corgi. It is die-cast. Let's see, it is the AA33320 Boeing B-17G Flying Fortress. The Trainz SKU is P12809516. It's a military plane. Should I have said niner? Who knows? Price at time of filming is $331.49. So let's take the lid off and get cracking. This particular example is painted up for the United States Army Air Force. It is Snake Hips. That is the name of the plane. And Snake Hips is famous for having taken a truly insane amount of damage and still making it back to base. So they were in formation when, if I remember correctly, I think it was a Focke-Wulf F-109 crashed into the aircraft, right? The bombs blew out through the side of the fuselage, ripped a huge hole in the wing of the plane. It almost severed the tail. As they were flying, they're obviously losing altitude. They've lost engines at this point. They're kind of descending in altitude, but the other bombers above them are still releasing their bombs. So they're watching as these 500-pound bombs go flying all around them. That would have been a very explosive end to their experience. But they did survive. They did manage to make it home. They landed the plane. There were crew fatalities, but the fact that anyone survived is honestly incredible. So let's look at this thing, huh? Oh my gosh, look at the detail. We're gonna have to find the stand and put it up because it is heavy. This is metal. This is not plastic at all. All right, so we are 1/72 scale, and we are impressive. All the markings on the aircraft, these are pad printed. These are not decals, so they are flush with the surface. They don't stick up. There's no bumps or anything like that. They're not going to peel or fade over time. They're even, is this Hamilton standard? Yeah, the props had the freaking logo and specifications on them. That is insane. Who does that kind of detail? Apparently, Corgi does. So this is a B-17G model. This is like the final version of the Boeing bomber. And you can tell it's a G by the Astrodome in the nose. That's so Navigator could take star sights with his sextant and figure out navigation. The B-17G was basically the evolution of all the different variants, standardized into one final design. So we've got our dorsal turret here. We've got the chin turret. We've got cheek-mounted machine guns. We've got waist gunners. We've got a tail gunner. And of course, the iconic Sperry ball turret underneath, and that thing moves everywhere. And if you take a look at it, you can tell where George Lucas got the idea for the TIE fighter from Star Wars. Oh my gosh, look at that thing. That is so cool. Oh, we've even got details of the turbo superchargers underneath the big right radial engines. This is nice. This is very nice. All right, let me put it down before I drop something. Now, the Boeing B-17 was the third most produced bomber in the world after the B-24 Consolidated Liberator and the German Junkers Ju-88, which was a multi-role. It wasn't just specifically a bomber. And like I mentioned, there are a variety of different versions culminating in the B-17G. There were over 12,000 built. And the B-17 as a class was responsible for dropping about 640,000 tons of bombs on Nazi Germany and its possessions. which was like 46.2% of all bombs dropped by Allied air forces during World War II. Now, Allied Command, they seem to prefer the B-24, but air crews loved the B-17 because it could take insane amounts of damage and still make it home. There are pictures of B-17s where the tail is almost completely cut off, or flak has ripped away most of the rudder. There are holes in the wings big enough to drive a car through. 3 engines knocked out and on fire, and 1, running out of oil. Landing gears shot off, ripped off, gone. Gaping holes in the fuselage, and they still managed to make it home. So I understand. If I was in the Army Air Force at the time, I would probably want to be on the plane that was most likely to make it home. Who cares what Allied Bomber Command says? Now you might wonder, where did the name Flying Fortress come from? And for that, you can thank, let me make sure I get his name right, Richard Williams. He was a reporter for the Seattle Times. He was witnessing one of the early models doing a test flight, and he saw all the different gun emplacements, and he called it a 15-ton Flying Fortress. And yeah, the name stuck, because this was the most defensively armed bomber out there. I think over 13 guns on this thing. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12. Okay. I guess it's 12. Or maybe you could put another one up there. Maybe that would make it 13. But you get the idea. This thing was a beast. And I've had the pleasure of seeing quite a few different examples, because there are over 8,600 B-17Gs made alone, right? And over 12,000 total, so plenty of them lying around. The inside of the aircraft is so much smaller than you would expect. I was at a Florida museum, and they had their B-17 set up in a darkened hangar, set up to look like a forward base, right? They had their B-17 landing gear down, of course, and you would climb in through this side door. It's not on this side, it's on this side. You would enter the aircraft through this side door here, and you could kind of go back and sit in the tail position and see what that was like. And then you crawl forward past the waist gunners through the bomb bay. And the cool part about that one, they had the bomb bay open, but they had screens on the floor showing footage from a B-17 that was in the air. So it looked like you were flying over Nazi Germany in World War II. It was black and white. It wasn't color. You walk through this very narrow catwalk. And when you think about being up 10,000, 15,000 feet in the air, and the only thing keeping you from falling is a little catwalk that's narrower than this table. You have your radio operator, your navigation, you have your different turrets. The pilot and co-pilot, they're pretty much shoulder to shoulder. So for everything that you're cramming in here, you'd expect this to be enormous on the inside, but it really, really was not. And then we actually got to exit through, where was it on this guy? Oh, there's a little hatch underneath up here. If I'm remembering correctly, it's been quite some time, and I think the museum is closed now, but it was a heck of a cool experience. Now let's take it off the stand briefly, and we'll show the belly here. Put the stand over here. Looks like, yep, these bomb bay doors will open. Of course, I have no fingernails. And isn't that always the way? You're about to do something that requires fingernails, but you just trim them the day before. So we have our bomb bay in here, the rack of bombs all set and ready to go. And you can see the engine nacelles for the 2 inboard engines, they're open with pegs. And that's so that you can either mount retracted gear or deployed landing gear. The 2 inboard engine nacelles, they have open bays here, and we have a couple of different options for our landing gear. Since the tail piece is already fitted with it retracted, we're going to put these in as if we are flying. So they're just a friction fit held in there. If you look at the landing gear leg, they have this kind of longer peg. You face the wheel forward and just pop it in. The reason that the landing gear retracted forward is so that if you had damage, if you could undo the mechanism, then gravity and airspeed would kind of force the wheel to swing out and lock in the downward position and help you hopefully survive a landing. So some more smart thinking there. And you see that on the Douglas DC-3 as well. It wasn't like a B-17 only idea. But man, we've got some really cool details. The turrets, they do spin, and the gun barrels, you can elevate them. They're a pretty loose fit, so at a certain point they just kind of flop down. But that's okay. The tail gunner, those barrels are fixed in place. They're not going to move around that much. Same with the waist guns, they're kind of fixed in place. Let's see if the chin turret moves at all. See, I gotta be careful with all the details under here. Okay, so the chin turret is cast in place as well, same with the barrels up front. So really, you got the dorsal turret and then the ventral ball turret that you can kind of move around and position as you like. But still, what a beast, huh? Such a cool plane. This is definitely one of the most recognizable bombers in the world, I would say. Certainly, if you're a history buff, you need a B-17 somewhere. There are a few that are still in flying condition, and I do mean a few. I was lucky enough, I was out mowing my backyard one day, and then all of a sudden my lawnmower sounded really impressive, right? Even through my earmuffs, I was like, whoa, when did I get a V8 on this thing, right? So I stopped mowing, and I'm looking around, and way up high, there's a B-17. It was flying back from an air show, and the Wright Cyclone radial engines, even at that height, even through earmuffs and a noisy lawnmower, you could hear them. So just imagine being on the ground and watching 100 of these fly over. It must have been some kind of experience. But that's enough talking for now. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you'd be so kind. And if you're going to fly the friendly skies, do it in a B-17.
Trainz.com. Making dreams come true, one train at a time.